Good evening, Sword Family. Welcome to a very special edition of the Teahouse. Tonight, we're going to be doing a repeat of the AMA I did back in January, because as of this Monday or Tuesday will be 1 year that I've been streaming on YouTube. So I figured, let's have some fun, and we can have my lovely viewers ask me questions that they want to know the answer to. So that's what we're going to do tonight. But first, I have a little announcement to make. Now, up until this point, this show has been every other week, every other Saturday. And that was mostly due to my work schedule, that I was only free every other Saturday. However, starting next week, we're going to be doing every Saturday streams. Now, if something happens to come up, prior engagements or illness or something like that, obviously there won't be a show that Saturday. But for the most part, we will be doing streams every Saturday from here on out, which means I'm going to have to come up with a lot more interesting topics to talk about. Or I could just get on here and ramble for an hour about whatever is annoying me at the moment. But I've been talking about it for a while, thinking about if I wanted to do every week and asking my lovely commenters, my Sword family, what they thought. And I think it was Trelena Bachman who said that she was always sad when she realized that there wasn't going to be a stream that week. And so you don't have to be sad anymore, because we're doing every Saturday now. So there you go. I was going to get, I don't know, a cupcake or something for myself when I was at the store earlier to celebrate my 1 year, but I decided not to. And since this is an AMA stream, we'll go right into the comments. And first through the door at 4:35 Mountain Time is the amazing composer himself, Dan Hollifield. Good evening, Dan. And then, of course, up next is my lovely Foxy. Evening, Dan. Got some questions thought up. Yes. Because if no one has any questions, this is going to be an incredibly short stream, or it's just going to be me telling, various martial arts stories, which that could be interesting too. And there is the lady herself, Trey. Good evening. Good evening to you. And Foxy greeting Trey. And there is the amazing Aunt Donna. Hey, Foxy, Trey, and Dan. Hello, Donna. And Foxy greeting Donna. And there is Alec. Hi, all. Hello, Alec. Glad you stopped by. And Carl is here. Good evening. Good evening, Carl. Oh, a lot of questions. Well, all right. We'll see what we can do. And more greetings. And there is Kitty greeting everyone. Hello. Oh, okay. Here we go. I think I have a good question. What got you into swordsmanship? Okay. So, I think I have possibly mentioned this on one of my earlier streams, but I was very much a child of the 80s and 90s. So Conan the Barbarian, Highlander, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Shokoshuji ninja movies, all of these things together. But it wasn't until I was walking home from middle school. I think it was sixth grade. I was walking home, and for some reason, something told me to take a detour. And I had never gone down this particular street before. And I happened to run across a very, very old Chinese man practicing and teaching his granddaughter in his garage. And I was so monumentally mesmerized by his movements because it was completely different than anything I had ever seen up until that point. Because you notice all of those things that I mentioned, none of them were Asian. None of them were, none of them were Chinese. So I had never seen anything like what he was doing. He was doing mantis. And it took him a few minutes to notice that I was standing there because he was showing his granddaughter. He had his back to me. He was facing into the garage, facing his granddaughter. And she was probably around my age. I think she was like a year or two younger than me. And she noticed me first. So she kind of pointed me out, and he turned around and saw me standing there. And I was like, getting ready to be yelled at by someone, So I started walking away, and he's like, whoa, wait, And he walks to the end of the garage, and he was, old, so he was not exactly walking, spry. He was kind of shuffling a little bit. And he walked to the end of the garage, and he, in, broken English, asked if I wanted to come and watch. And so I did. He kind of put his hand on my shoulder and walked me into the garage, and the granddaughter pulled out a stool, and I sat down. I started watching. And the minute that he started doing the form again, all of that age that I had seen in his walking just like melted away. And he started doing a mantis hand form, and it was fluid, and it was beautiful. And I was just dumbfounded by what I saw. And he offered to teach me. He offered, do you want to become my student? And I was like, I can't pay you. I can't give you anything. And he's like, you don't have to. I don't do this for money. I do it to spread the art to other people. So that day I became his student, and he became my very first Shifu. But if you ever called him Shifu, he would slap you upside the head. Like, no. He wanted to be called Agong, which is an old term of respect for an elder person, or it meant grandfather. So he was looking at me not as a student, but as a grandson. And one day I happened to show up for class early because, well, okay, this is a little, this is a little morbid, so, trigger warning or whatever. But that day at school, I showed up and found out that one of my classmates had I don't particularly like this term, but he had unalived himself. So school that day was really kind of weird. None of the teachers actually taught that day. Like every single class period, people would show up to class and the teacher would put on a movie. And so I was like, it wasn't anyone I was particularly close with. I knew him. We had been going to school since like the first grade, but I wouldn't say we were friends. So I just kind of snuck out a little early, like 35 minutes early. I stayed most of the day. And I showed up early, and Agong was doing a sword form. And once again, it was completely different than anything I had seen up until that point. You watch Highlander, or you watch the Shokosuji ninja movies, things like that. The sword is abrupt. It's very hard. But this was just like the empty hand form. It was flowing from one movement to the next. It was hard to pick out, where one move ended and the next one began. And again, I was just mesmerized by these movements. And he was so into what he was doing that he didn't notice I was there. And it wasn't until he finished the form, put the sword away, and he was reaching up above his head to set it on like a sword stand, and he kind of stumbled, and I ran over and kind of caught him, and he kind of looked over at his shoulder at me and kind of nodded, and he's started telling me about he had that sword. He saved up money as a young man to be able to buy it. And, he had it for like 50 years or something. And he asked if I wanted to look at it. And I was like, no. And he insisted. He's like, please. So, he went to reach for it again, and I'm like, no, So I kind of reached up to put my hand to block him from grabbing it. And he pushed the back of my hand forward until I was touching the sword. And the minute my hand touched that sword, people will laugh at this, but this is 100% the truth. I felt the sword talk to me. I felt it, through me. And before I knew it, I picked it up and I unsheathed it, and I'm looking at the blade, and it's still in pristine condition after 50 years, And I just kind of started absentmindedly like swinging around and doing things. And that was when he kind of christened me, I guess, with a Chinese name. And it's not the same name that's, some people who are like friends with me on Facebook. It's not that name. That name I came up with myself. But the name he gave me was Jian Sheng. Jian is the Chinese word for sword, and Sheng means sage or saint. He was giving me a title that meant I was a sword prodigy, because he saw me doing things with that sword that he said he had never seen a beginner doing before. So from that point on, I was Jian Sheng. That was the name that he gave me. Blackberry tea today. We're going to try and give the wild berry a rest for a little while. So there you go. 15-minute answer to a fairly simple question, but it was Agong that got me into, well, okay. Agong was what got me into Chinese swordsmanship. But what got me into swordsmanship itself was just growing up in the time period that I grew up in and watching the things that I watched. And Kitty has some questions. Oh boy. Oh boy. Feel like I failed. No, you didn't fail. It's not that big a deal. I just spent, 15 minutes answering what got me into swordsmanship. So if there are any other questions going around, I'm sure we'll make it to the hour. That's a good one. Yes, that was a very good question, Alec. I'm glad that you asked that question, because that's a very important story to explain how I became the person that I am. And Donna greets Alec, and Foxy greets Alec and Kitty and Carl. And Donna greets Kitty and the Withman dude. Alec greets Donna. Might think of things as we go. Don't be too hard on yourself. That's true. Perhaps, a question that someone else asks will trigger a question for you. Trey would like to know if the interest in culture or martial arts came first and how he started getting into it. How did you learn Chinese in Mormon country? Well, there you go. It was definitely martial arts first, and it was all because of Agong. And while he was teaching me martial arts, he was also teaching me about the culture, because the two go hand in hand. It's kind of the same reason why when I'm teaching students, I don't just teach them martial arts. I also teach them philosophy, because they go hand in hand. They are one unit. So I learned from a Chinese person. He was a Hong Kong expatriate that moved to tiny little Mormon Utah Okay. This might be a little more information that might give away exactly where I live, but whatever. There is a small town only 6 miles away from me that is well known for the railroad. They have a railroad museum. And Ah Gong came over from Hong Kong and he helped build some of the railroad in this area. Something that a lot of people don't know, if they don't know history, is that Chinese immigrants built most of the railroad in this country. And so Ah Gong came to Utah as a part of a group of Chinese people building the railroads. And that's how he ended up going from Hong Kong to Utah. And eventually he made enough money to bring over his wife and his kids, and the kids had kids, and that's how the granddaughter came about. But eventually most of the rest of them moved away from Utah because it's mostly coal mines. If you're not working in the coal mine or something to do with coal, there's not really a whole lot going around. So they left and he stayed. And eventually, not too long after I started studying with him, he passed. He's buried right here in one of the cemeteries in this town. So yeah, it was all Ah Gong who got me into Chinese martial arts and culture. That was a good question. All right, here's another one. How many different things did you try before you figured out that this was the right thing for you to do? How many other choices did you have that weren't as fulfilling? Well, that really depends by what you mean by this was the right thing. Do you mean, Chinese martial arts, or becoming a teacher, or as far as other things, there are in my town a couple of different karate studios, dojos, whatever you want to call it. And I had never really gone to any of the classes, but I had seen, people that I hung out with, that I was friends with, doing karate. And it just seemed too rigid for my taste. I mean, if you've ever seen a karate form, it's very, very rigid. And it's very harsh. And it just never really appealed to me. So it was almost always Chinese martial arts that appealed to me. And after Ah Gong passed, my parents decided that it might be a good idea for me to go with one of my friends to his karate class. Because to my parents, it was all karate. Still to this day, it bugs the hell out of me. But, because of Ah Gong and because of the Chinese martial arts training, I got into a lot of Chinese movies. Obviously, Bruce Lee, that was another big influence. But that happened after Ah Gong passed. an uncle of mine introduced me to Bruce Lee movies. So I have every single movie that he ever made on that shelf right there, as well as, Crouching Tiger and Curse of the Golden Flower and Hero, One-Armed Swordsman, all of these Chinese martial art movies. And my parents, especially my dad, always calls them karate movies. He likes them karate movies. No. I mean, yeah, I watched The Karate Kid growing up. Most people who were born in the 80s did. I enjoy Cobra Kai, but they're not karate movies. And all Asian martial arts are not karate. But to them, it was all karate. So I had a friend who's not really a friend anymore, but he went to one of the local schools, and my parents decided, he likes them karate movies, so let's go send him to a karate class, and if he likes it, we can sign him up. And I went, and I watched. I was there for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And my friend told the sensei that, I was considering, excuse me, I was considering joining the class, which I wasn't. But he decided to approach me after class was over. I hear you want to join my karate dojo. And I said, no, not really. It's like, well, what are you doing here? And I'm like, look, this was my parents' idea. They wanted, I don't know, they were trying to bond with me or something, and they want me to, they think every martial art is karate, and I was just here. And I don't know if this particular guy was just an asshole, or if I said something to offend him, but he got remarkably annoyed with whatever I had said. And so he decided that I was trying to say that I was better than karate. I never said that. It had nothing to do with anything that I said. So he calls over one of his higher ranking students. They were a purple belt or something. I don't know. The belt system, I don't really care for. Mr. Miyagi. Belts mean no need the rope, hold up pants. I don't care about belts. So he called this guy over and, said that we were going to spar. And I'm over there going, whoa, wait, hold on. What? No. What are you talking about? He's like, well, you think you're better than my class, so show me. And he kind of pushed me onto the mat. And this other guy, who was quite a bit bigger than me, immediately goes into a stance, and I'm just kind of standing there going, this is not, no. And he throws a kick right at the side of my head, right at my temple, and I just instinctively just slapped it away. And I guess that pissed him off. So he started just throwing punches and kicks and things at me, and I was just blocking them all. Just not even, and he got pissed. And so did the sensei. And I was just reacting. I wasn't even really, I didn't try and fight back. I was just stopping him from attacking me. And eventually, I saw an opening, because he would always attack in like a pattern, in a rhythm. And I started catching that rhythm and seeing, okay, he's gonna kick now. Next one's gonna be a punch. Next one's gonna be a kick, then a punch and a kick. So in between the kick and the punch, I did, mantis hand and wrapped my wrist around his ankle, stepped into it, and just kind of pushed him over. He fell backwards on his back, and that was the first time I had, attacked back. And he's on the ground panting. You can see it in his face. He's pissed. The sensei's pissed. And I just walked out. I just left. And I never went back. So, Chinese martial arts were always at the forefront for me. And Dawn shows up. Skids in with a bottle of water, jumps on the couch, and looks around inconvenient. Yeah, I saw that. I see you. Sorry, Dawn mops up some water. And everyone's greeting Dawn because Dawn is awesome. And, if you don't have anything going on Monday night, tune in to Indie CD 411, where Dawn will be interviewing Joe McKeel about upcoming HoloCon convention. That will be Monday night. Don't forget to like and share. Yes, Donna doing my job. Happy first anniversary. Thank you. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Yep. Weekly streams. We're doing it every week now. Another happy anniversary. Good evening, folks. Happy Streamiversary. Independent Creator Directory, also known as Joe Bachman. The wonderful man behind IndieCD.org that I think everyone almost everyone in the chat is a part of. You want streams, you want authors, you want comic book artists, check out IndieCD. Think that every week is going to be a lot more work? It is. Aggressively jams the like button. Be gentle with the button. Being nice and not getting a cupcake because I'm sick and cannot have. Yeah, that was part of it too. Trey hopes she feels better. I do too. No fun today. Yeah. And another question. Here we go. How did you stumble across Nick's Historical Fencing Guild stream to find this sword family? Also, were you already streaming before finding Nick's stream? Okay. I came across the Historical Fencing Guild because of another YouTuber that I'm sure Joe and Trelena are well acquainted with by the name of Sword Sage. He is also another YouTuber that does, Chinese martial arts. And I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more, he put up a video of him sparring with Nick. And down in the comments was a link to the Historical Fencing Guild. So I went and found that stream, and that's how I met Nick. And Nick is pretty much how I met all of these other wonderful people in the chat. And no, I was not streaming at all up until last year. And honestly, when I first started, there were a couple of times at the very beginning that I very seriously considered just not doing it anymore because no one was commenting, no one was watching. But Nick was the one who gave me the confidence to actually even start in the first place, because there were times that people would ask him questions about, Chinese martial arts that he wouldn't know the answer to. And so I thought, hey, I could answer these questions. And I started streaming. And now, a year later, here we are. Carl is sorry to hear that Foxy's sick. And Joe hopes Foxy feels better. Donna is greeting Joe. And Donna hopes that Foxy feels better. Me too. I'm attempting to eat. Whether it stays is in debate. Yeah. Sword is much like a pool cue. The right one will speak to you. It will feel like an extension of your own arm, almost as if your hand isn't what is holding it. It's a part of you. This is very, very true. But it's not just swords. It's any weapon, period. I have learned staff, spear, dao, dagger forms, a little bit of fan forms. And none of them have had that same connection that that very first Tien had to me. Swords and I don't get along, not the right style, and that it's not always the right style for everyone. I tend to lean towards the sword because that's the weapon that spoke to me. But I also don't begrudge other people for being like, no, I don't like that one. And I will try and find something that suits them better. And if it's not something that I can teach them, I can find someone who can. Oh, now, come on, Kitty. Come on now. Who's my favorite student? No. I have 3. And I'm, connected to all of them in various ways. So I can't pick a favorite. That's not fair. Favorite training memory. Okay, there are a couple. Obviously, that first one is going to be just that sword. When I just started swinging that thing around and my brain shut off and just moving that thing around and doing, that's just, But the next one is not from Agong, but from my other Shifu. I've talked about him a little bit and how he made me an assistant instructor very shortly after meeting me, kind of the same as Agong. He must have saw something in me that, And so I'm assistant instructor. So the beginning of class, I would be the one warming the class up, getting them all stretched out and stuff. And there was one guy in the class that I was taking. Like, I went to all of the classes as assistant instructor, but there was only one that I paid for to be a student of at the college. And he was, to fine of a term on it, he was a dick. He probably had 50, 60 pounds on me. He always showed up wearing camouflage pants. He always talked shit about the mantis styles that we were using and saying it was all dancing. And, well, I just came from Tang Soo Do, and that's something you can use to fight with. You can't fight with this crap. It's like, dude, why are you even in the class then? Piss off. So we're learning this thing called a 4-point block. Most people who have done Chinese martial arts are aware of the 3-point block. If you've ever seen a wooden man in Wing Chun, the 3-point block stand up a little bit here, is a partnered exercise, and you and your partner are doing the same thing. And you go down, forearm to forearm, come up, forearm to forearm again, and then back down on the outside of the forearm. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That's the 3-point block. We were learning the 4-point block, where, again, it's a paired exercise, and one person is attacking, is punching, and the other person is blocking. And because I was an assistant instructor, and because my Shifu saw something in me, he usually paired me up with the problem students, which included this guy. And, you know, we're talking about the 4-point block, and this jackass, you know, says, well, what if I do, you know, this? And instead of doing the punch, you know, your punches are high, low, low, high. And what if I do this? And he just throws like 3 or 4 really, really fast successive punches. And Shifu looks at him, looks at me, looks back at him and goes, you can try. Shifu had such faith in me that he was basically telling this guy, go for it. Give it a shot. See what happens. And he just kind of looked around, and you could see some of the color drain out of his face. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. The next week, we're still doing the 4-point block. And, you know, you're supposed to be going slow. It's not about power. It's about precision. And so we're doing, you know, block, punch, and he decides to throw all 3 punches, you know, bam, 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 as fast and as hard as he can. And I just pop, 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 blocked them all. And again, he was just like, what the hell? And I'm like, okay, you want to go full speed, full power? I threw my 4 full power, full speed, and punched him square in the nose. Now, because I'm me, when I noticed that he wasn't going to block that one, I pulled back a little bit, but I bloodied his nose a little bit. And from that point on, for the rest of that semester, he shut the hell up. He was no longer talking crap about what we were learning, at least not to me. He might have said it to other students. He might have said it before and after class. But once that class started, from the moment that class started until the moment we ended, he did not say anything ever again. So that was a pretty good memory. Joe, I feel the same way the first time my fencing class let me use an Italian-style foil. It just fit me better than the French style. That makes sense. There's an abandoned karate studio here in my town. It's in a back alleyway. Bugs him about as much as saying things like 3 a.m. in the morning. As opposed to what? 3 a.m. in the afternoon? 3 a.m. in the evening? You either say 3 a.m. or 3 in the morning. You don't have to say them both. It's redundant. Couldn't resist. Yeah, okay. Meant more of the other pursuits you might have directed your life towards martial arts in general. To be honest, other than, you know, when I started becoming an associate instructor and people approaching me, you know, other students approaching me and asking me to teach them instead of the official Shifu, they wanted me. There's not really been anything else. It's just been this. I mean, you know, I did try music when I was younger, and that didn't end well. And then I ended up picking it back up again. I have my guitar right here. What other directions you may have pursued before you figured out Chinese martial arts? Yeah, there's not really been a whole lot else. I mean, yeah, when I was a kid, you know, me and my friends would run around with those crappy white plastic katanas and, you know, fight each other in the backyard and stuff. But actually pursuing, it's always been Chinese martial arts, just the whole time. Answered my question well enough the first time. Too lazy to switch to my normal profile after baking in the sun at the park all day. Yeah, Foxy'd be toasted. Sword Sage, I've sparred with him. I'm sure I was a patron for him for a while, but I just, you know, I couldn't afford it anymore. But I've still subscribed to his channel. I still watch everything that he do. He was the one that introduced me to LK Chen and the Han style of Jian. So if I ever had a chance to meet him, I would like to. It'd be kind of cool. And then I brought Foxy along, yes. Well, to go back to this one, after I started watching Nick's Friday streams, it almost became like a date night for Foxy and I. We would watch together and eat pizza and watch the stream, and it just kind of became a thing. And it's still, I mean, it still is. It's just we don't have pizza every time anymore. I'm glad you kept up with streaming. So am I. Because I very easily could have given up. But I started this because I have things that I think people need to hear. And whether people hear them or not, does it really matter? They need to be said, so I'm here saying them. Don says you've given us amazing support, and if I know anything about this crazy group of reporters, we support who supports us. And I try. I try to do what I can. I don't have a whole lot of, you know, money to give to like Patreon and stuff, but I watch the streams. I comment. I like the streams. And Don wants Foxy to get better. Back to puzzling and listening. Huh? Who's my best student? Best at what? Best at listening, best at, you know, duplicating what I can do, best at wanting to practice. Just earlier this week, my little cousin, who is in the 2nd grade and has only been doing this for a very short period of time, she walked up to me with the 2 little practice swords that I made, and she's like, let's go practice. You know, she really enjoys it, and I kind of hope that she actually sticks with it, because if she can start that young, you know, 1st grade, before 1st grade, whatever, I think it was before 1st grade, you know, if she can start that young, and stick with it, she's got a chance to be really, really good. So there we go. We're all good at different things, though. You're probably the most talented. I don't know, but being a dancer before you started doing martial arts, it gives you an extra foothold that the other two don't have. Some people have a natural talent. That's, yeah. Something in you matches up with the activity and it feels right, apparently. Because now two separate people, two separate teachers have seen something in me that they're like, oh, yeah, you come over here. You come over here. We're gonna do this now. That was a funny night, yeah. It's been many, many years ago now, and it's still just the deadpan. You know, that first Shifu was from Hong Kong, second one was from Taiwan, so they're not exactly fluent in English, but he just, the lowering of his voice and just, you can try. Probably just told his mom. Sword battle, me and my prime versus Nick or Trey in their prime using your preferred styles. How difficult would it be for either side to score a hit with a bit? Oh. Okay, here's the thing. From what I've seen, from like the Shakespeare in the Park things that you guys have put, you know, sparring videos up, all three of us have vastly different styles of fighting, which is obvious. Everyone has different styles of fighting. Even two people learning the same style will have a different way of applying that style. I think me now, I would probably get hammered by both of them. And that's just because I've had to do a lot of work to rebuild my base after my hip. You know, if you don't have a strong root, even if you continue training your upper body, which I did, without that base, you're going to have problems. So I think they'd both kick my ass right now. But in my prime, Bagua sword, not saying anything against Nick or Trey or Joe or anyone else, but from what I've seen in the sparring videos, you all fight fairly linearly in a straight line. Bagua, as a style, teaches you to think in circles. Tai Chi does the same thing. So I think in my prime, before my hip, I think that fight, either of those fights, me versus Nick or me versus Trey, that would be something that I myself, as an outside observer, would love to have watched. Because I think that would be one of those like epic movie sword fights. I think it would be difficult for any of us to land any kind of attack on the other person, on the opponent. Now it would be a completely different story, but it would still be fun. Even if I got my butt kicked, which I'm pretty sure I would, it would be fun. If there's ever an opportunity for us to actually meet in person. If you guys come down here, or if by some miracle we make it up that way, and I know that I'm going that way, this is coming with me. And that's all I'm going to say. If you guys come down here, bring something, because we're going to play. But that's a good question. I think it would be fun to watch. Even now, I think it'd be fun to watch. I ask only because I have a feeling the two styles are vastly different. And they are. They absolutely are. I've seen both Nick and Trey fight with sword and dagger or sword and buckler. I do one hand. That was something that always amazed the people that we used to boffer with, because everyone else showed up with a polearm and two swords. And I showed up with one sword and only one sword. And I was dueling, fighting one-handed. And I was holding my own against these people who had, 4 5-foot long pole arms or double sword. It was fun. In Fighting Sword Sage, I can confirm they are incredibly different. And I'm sure I fight differently than he does. That's the best thing about, martial arts. Like I said, even two people learning the exact same style will apply that style in different ways. There was a big guy in my third fencing class who was about Joe Bachman's size at age 18. He loved to try and intimidate the smaller students. It unnerved him that I wouldn't react and managed to match him. That's the thing about bullies. And the guy I'm talking about was absolutely a bully. The first time that the Shifu tried to pair people up, he immediately went straight for the smallest girl in class. He wanted to be like, I'm the biggest, I'm the baddest, I'm going to pick on the smallest person. That's being a bully. And Shifu kind of stepped in between him and was like, nope, over here. Yep, that was a hoolie. She's a cute little co-star. Yeah, she's my co-star. Like I said, it would be fun to watch. I would love to be able to do something like that. Because for the most part, I've not really done a whole lot of sparring. When I tripped and broke my hip, it was basically me against 4 children. And granted, they were children, but there were 4 of them. And I remember one of the kids made a comment that just made me laugh. I had my my Green Destiny trainer that day because I didn't have the Hanjin trainer yet. And I was just blocking or deflecting every single shot they threw at me. It didn't matter what side it was coming from. One of them tried to get behind me. And one of the kids goes, "You can't block forever." And I went, "Can't I?" Just like with the karate student. I wasn't attacking back. I was completely on the defensive the entire time. And then I tripped over a stair and broke myself. But that's kind of just the way I fight. The same thing happened in boffering. One of the guy who oversaw the entire thing came to me one day and he's like, you don't have to be scared. I'm like, Scared of what? He's like, well, you're constantly backing off. You need to be on the defensive sometimes. And I'm just like, that's not how I fight. That's not how I do it. I will sit back and I will be on the defensive until I find my opening. That's just how I do things. Never actually scored more points than he did, but our bouts went on for half the class time, evenly matched despite the size difference. Yeah. If we ever meet in person, there would be some sparring matches. And I have a perfect spot for it, too. Actually, I have several. But if you look out this window right here, there's a big grass area. You know, the next apartment over is facing this way, and then our apartment is facing this way. So there's like a triangular patch of grass right there. I taught my pseudo sister-in-law out there. This is Foxy's brother's wife. I taught her out there. And the best thing about doing it out there is you have a captive audience. And it happened when she and I were out there. People would go out on their patios and watch us. I saw camera phones out. We could go out there, or depending on the time of day, we could go out to Dino Mine Park, which is where we used to hold boffer events, because it's a castle playground. So that would be fun too. But yeah, there would definitely be, yeah. I think I would start having too much fun to actually have a serious fight. And that is a concern too. That is definitely trying to be serious. I'm a goofball. And that's just throwing that out there. There are times when I'm teaching Kitty or when I'm teaching Foxy that I'll just do something completely goofy because I have to break that super serious tension. Just start making faces or something, you know, just start laughing. Plus, when I'm having fun, I'm having fun. And I think getting a chance to actually spar with my sword family, I'd be having fun. So it would be hard to be serious anyway. Catching him is the problem, yeah. I have a Scottish friend. And we used to spar sometimes. I would say he's probably close in height to Joe or Rich. But he's buff. He's muscular. And he hated sparring with me. He would literally say, you know, hold still, you bouncy bastard. But when he caught me, he would hammer the crap out of me, but it was always fun. Hurt too much at this age to be a serious threat to anyone? I don't know about that. The right situation. Certain age, we all stick to the style of Ching Chong Pow. A sword would just take too much energy while a gun might. Maybe. But I have my own opinions about guns and martial arts that I will not get into because we're already over the hour and I don't want to start anything new. You know me altogether too well, redneck foo. Huli wants the rest of my dinner. I'm telling her no. Probably a good thing. Bouncy and has much longer legs, and that's true. And I also very rarely stop moving. That's another thing about Bagua and a lot of, you know, Chinese martial arts in general. That was another issue that I had with the karate classes. It was very static. It was very, you stand here, you do this thing, and if they do this thing, then you respond with this thing. I'm always moving. But mommy, you're not eating it. You're sick and I want to help. Yeah, that's the hoolie. Okay. Armed with a sharp whip. That's more dangerous than any weapon. It's very true. Been so long since I fought. I'm sure I remember how. You remember. Even if your mind doesn't remember, your body remembers. And I don't see any comments from over on Twitch. If you're over on Twitch, hello. Hello to you. That is true, Foxy. Dan would technically be a bard in D&D with his music background. Pretty sure he could do more than 1d6 damage with his vicious mockery. Bards are fun. We are most definitely over the hour. Have a good evening if we're closing. Yeah, I need to get to making my dinner. LOL, yeah. But I will be back next Saturday with a very special episode. If you want to know what's going to happen, you're just going to have to tune in. But I will see you next week. Great show. Thank you, Joe. Body remembers getting my bell rung with a sword against my helmet. Uh-huh. Good show. Thank you, Don. LOL from Foxy. Don eventually got it. Yes. See as many folks as possible in Stupid O'Clock Last Man Standing. If my internet will work tonight, I will hopefully try and get on. Great show. Thank you, Trey. Very interesting. Is that interesting in the Chinese, may you live in interesting times, perhaps? But I will be back next Saturday with a special show. So just keep an eye out on your, subscription page. You might get a little hint into what I'm doing. I'm glad that we got some good questions. I'm sorry if I rambled. I have something that I like to call a roller coaster of thought sometimes. You ask a question and it's like, well, to answer that question, I have to tell this other question first, or the answer won't make any sense. So I have to go back a little bit. That's just kind of how I tell stories. Yes. We'll see everyone later. I will see you next week. See you on Monday morning, Monday night, Wednesday morning, Wednesday night, Friday morning. But I will definitely be back next Saturday. It's going to be fun. I think you guys will enjoy it. I know I will enjoy it just because I'm me. But thank you for coming. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here for most of the last year. And here's to many more years to come. 再见。